off-year election.
That's right.
And there's not a lot of historic participation in off elections. This one is no different.
This is no different, but there are different races that you're seeing on the ballot that you just discussed a minute ago. So after every legislative session, there are always going to be constitutional amendments, proposed amendments based on what was covered during that session, what bills took place, what required votes from the voting base to pass or not. And so as a result, we have 17 whole statewide constitutional amendments in the state of Texas.
It needs more than the governor's signature to make it into a thing. The voters have to say, yeah, we agree.
Indeed it does. And look, those amendments always cover your way of life, everything from where your taxpayer dollars go to health care, the judicial system, and even parental rights. I mean, there was one proposition on the ballot that I was like, oh, I thought I already had these rights as a parent, right? But added a layer there. And so that typically always happens after a legislative session. But what is different from other odd years is that you don't have a whole congressional race to fill a vacancy. As you mentioned earlier, there are over 800,000 people who reside in the 18th district, and of that 800,000, 400,000 are actually registered. Well, when we crunch the numbers of how many of those folks turned out to vote during early voting, only a little bit over 39,000 had actually voted out of the 400,000.
That's a small number making a big choice for a bunch of people.
That's right. And let's talk about it, right? This district has gone without representation for 9 months now. And so federal dollars, the things that the voters in that area, constituents in that area need, I mean, really voters should be very aware, number one, on what they're voting for. There's 16 candidates in that race, so you're going to have to do some homework before going to cast your ballot. Yeah, this election cycle.
The 18th is it is a historic district.
It is.
From its inception on through Sylvester Turner's tenure.
Absolutely.
There as well.
Everyone from Barbara Jordan to Mickey Leland to Craig Washington to Sheila Jackson Lee. And so there are a lot of eyes on this race and a lot of talent that are throwing their hands in the race. But what voters should know is, after that leg session, there were 2 special sessions. And part of that session, redistricting, mid-century redistricting took place. And new maps were approved by the state of Texas. Now, when voters go vote for this special election in November, the lines will not change. If you've always been in CD18, you've been a voter there. When you vote this November, it is according to where CD18 has always been. But when we get to next year and the 2026 primaries and midterms, those lines will change. So if you've always been in CD18, it could change next year. And so that can be sort of confusing for the main voter who doesn't understand, hey, I'm looking for my candidate or the person to represent me. So 16 candidates, it's got to be a really strong person to pull that 50% plus one vote. So it likely can go into a runoff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so when we're talking about preparing for tomorrow, I encourage voters to make a plan to vote. Visit harrisvotes.com. You can put your name and address in there and view your specific sample ballot.
And I want to just clarify there, so people who may hear this, the old lines for CD18 are the lines for this special election.
That is absolutely correct.
Yes.
The old lines.
So all of that talk about redistricting
doesn't
happen until next year for the general election for that.
As long as this court case doesn't move into another session, right?
As it stands now.
Yeah, but if there is a runoff, it will be the same lines from the November election. And we just have to be hyper-focused on that because there's such an oversaturation of different information rolling around. And so CD18, also City of Houston at-large 4, there's a council member who's vacated that seat to run for another office. And there are 15 candidates in that race and a possible write-in. So these are all important. Houston City College, which changed from HCC, has trustee board elections. I know Cy-Fair area, if you live in that area, has a lot of tight races in that area. And look, these are the elections that meet you at your doorstep.
And so bond issues.
That's right, bond issues, which all talks about funding, how to fund the education system. And so you pay for it, you might as well go vote and make sure your voice is heard.
Yeah, because then if you don't vote, then you have no business complaining later on.
Absolutely
what the heck
not.
happened?
Especially not after 12 days of early voting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So one of the big conversations about voting in general in 2025 is the security of the vote and making sure that only the right people are voting. I know it's a complicated process, but
Sure.
but give me some bullet points of what's being done in Harris County to ensure the sanctity of the vote.
Yes, well, year round, we have compliance measures that we follow.
Yeah.
As an election official, I don't just get to come in and say, hey, this is a great idea. We have to follow the Texas election code. And everything from the very start to an election to the end. As a matter of fact, in Harris County, it takes us 9 to 12 months to prepare for the next November. So while we're conducting this election, we're already preparing for the next term. And so the very first thing we do is, was there any changes to the election process during the legislative session? Absolutely, there was. There are not very many that the voters will feel the impact of, but from an operational standpoint, it has definitely put in more integrity auditing measures in place that happen. I mean, some people don't even know after an election, we audit every single record before going to the next. So everything from training to auditing our equipment for readiness, the financial aspect of it, right? How many polling locations will be around the county? It is a 24-hour, around-the-clock, around-the-year job. Gone are the days where your grandmother and grandfather's elections where you vote in an election, go home, won't be another thing for another year. Now we have so many special elections and, appraisal district elections. There's always an election going on. And so we're working with the state of Texas, Secretary of State, who's the chief election official of the state, and making sure compliance is at the front of that. I've done this work for a very long time. And so we are ensuring that all our T's and our T's are crossed, I's are dotted prior to every election cycle. And on the security front, there is an election task force made up of Houston Police Department, Harris County Sheriff's Office, and all 8 of our constables who are making sure that the elections are not only secure, but they play a vital role in our day-to-day operations. It is our law enforcement who makes sure the ballot boxes are locked. And they're brought in at the end of early voting and measures in terms of election day. So we're not just out here saying, anyone can be assigned to this work, but we're very strategic. And I think people would be interested to know that law enforcement plays a vital role. Now, obviously, if there's disturbances or some other things that go on, they play a vital role in the integrity of the election and protecting it.
Sure. There are 600 voting locations in Harris County alone.
Yes.
One thing that you mentioned in a soundbite that we carried over the weekend, which I think is important for people, because we're a spread out metropolitan area with a lot of counties,
You better
a lot
know
of
it.
different jurisdictions.
Yes.
And it's important to note where your voting spot is.
Yes.
Fort Bend County,
Yep.
Galveston County, Brazoria, Montgomery,
yeah.
Harris County. We got a lot of places you got to know. You got to do a little homework.
You have to know Harris County is larger than 25 states combined. Third largest in the nation. And so you're right. I mean, you can drive an hour. What do they say? You're an hour from Houston. You're driving an hour. Houston is an hour from Houston. And so when you talk about all these different areas, there's about 34 different cities and school districts within Harris County. And the great thing is you can vote anywhere, but in the political jurisdiction that you're registered. So you made an excellent point.
Just know. All right. We will look for results probably sooner rather than later because sadly there are so few people participating. But go out and vote tomorrow if you can, please. Make it, it's a responsibility. It really is. And it's an important right. So take advantage of it. Harris County Clerk Tanisha Hudspeth, thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Go to Harris
Best
Votes.
of luck tomorrow.
Get out to vote.
Excellent.